The festive supper was set for the evening. Guests were already en route, yet the table remained bare. The husband anxiously dialed his wife's number, hoping to hear she was moments away with the groceries. But her response was a shock. "Darling, the relatives are arriving any minute. You said you'd get everything for the meal, but you've been gone for 3 hours. What do you mean you're at Sheremetyevo?" The woman requested the speakerphone be activated and his mother be called. "Hello, dear listeners. I'm delighted to welcome you to my channel. I present a new, engaging story. Enjoy listening." Lyda never imagined she'd become the archetypal daughter-in-law from Jokes, downtrodden, quiet, perpetually at fault. Yet for the past 3 years, this had been her reality. She worked as a manager at a dental clinic, earning $70,000, half of which went into the communal family fund. This fund was under the watchful eye of Zenaida Fyodorovna, her mother-in-law, who had moved in immediately after the wedding to assist the newlyweds. This assistance manifested as daily critiques. "Litka, you've forgotten to wipe down the stove again. Litka, I don't understand why you buy this expensive yogurt. Plain kefir would be better. Litka, Kirill isn't getting enough sleep because of you. You toss and turn all night." Her husband Kirill would nod at his mother's every pronouncement and advise Lydia to not take it too much to heart, explaining that his mother had a strong personality, but meant well. Zenaida Fyodorovna worked as a cashier at Pyaterochka, yet carried herself as if she funded the entire household. She contributed not a single kopeck towards rent or groceries, but constantly reminded them that she had relinquished her room in a communal apartment for their sake. She rented out that room for $12,000, pocketing the money and frequently hinting that she was saving for her old age, as one never knew how their children might behave when they became infirm. Lydia endured. Enduring was a deeply ingrained quality from her childhood, a time when her parents' constant arguments led her to retreat to her room with a book, pretending not to hear. She met Kirill at a friend's corporate party. He seemed calm and dependable. Although, by their third date, he spent an hour on the phone with his mother, debating whether she should buy a new kettle. Lydia, however, saw this as a sign of a caring son. The first alarm bell rang a month after the wedding. Zenaida Fyodorovna declared her communal living situation unbearable due to wild neighbors and asked to stay for a week. That week stretched into 3 years. The mother-in-law occupied the small room Lydia had intended to convert into a home office, furnishing it with her own belongings: a threadbare sofa, a vanity with a smudged mirror, and a mountain of boxes containing items of unfathomable importance. From then on, Lydia's life became an unending tightrope walk. Zenaida Fyodorovna would rise at 6 in the morning and begin clattering in the kitchen. Then she'd wake Kirill. "My dear son, I've made you some porridge." Lydia would offer a curt, "Good morning." Kirill would eat his mother's porridge, kiss her cheek, and toss a "bye, dear" to his wife on his way out. Lydia would drink her coffee standing, as Zenaida Fyodorovna occupied the entire table with her jars of jam, packets of herbs, crockery, and newspapers. At work, Lydia found respite. There, she could exhale, chat with colleagues, and laugh. But the moment she crossed the threshold of her apartment, a heavy weight would descend. Zenaida Fyodorovna would greet her with an expression that suggested Lydia had arrived not home, but in a foreign convent. "Litka, you should have at least called to say you'd be late." The mother-in-law would say, "Kirill came home an hour ago and is sitting here hungry." Kirill, meanwhile, would be lounging on the sofa with his phone, showing no signs of starvation. Lydia, however, would silently head to the kitchen and begin preparing dinner. Zenaida Fyodorovna would settle nearby, ostensibly to help, commenting on every move. "You're using too much oil. The potatoes should be cut larger. Kirill always enjoyed my fried liver, but you only ever make chicken." One day, Lydia finally snapped and declared she was tired and simply wanted to rest. Zenaida Fyodorovna sulked, retreated to her room, and refused to speak for 3 days. Kirill shot his wife a reproachful look. Why upset her? She's trying her best for us." Lydia apologized. The mother-in-law graciously accepted and resumed her kitchen reign. Money was a separate sore point. Zenaida Fyodorovna adored scrutinizing others' expenditures. "Litka, why did you buy such expensive tomatoes? They're 20 rubles cheaper at Pyatorochka. Litka, another new lipstick. You're really living it up." Yet the mother-in-law herself regularly purchased creams, supplements, and herbal concoctions, spending about 5,000 a month, which she deemed essential for her health. Zenaida Fyodorovna particularly enjoyed hosting guests, or rather, inviting her relatives and acquaintances, while forcing Lydia to cook and clean. "Litka, my sister Tamara and her husband are coming on Saturday. Will you cook something delicious?" This wasn't a request. It was a command. Lydia would prepare salads, bake pies, and set the table. Zenaida Fyodorovna would greet guests and accept compliments. "Yes, I taught Litka how to cook. She's quite capable." She never offered to help with the post-feast cleanup. Kirill observed all this with placid detachment, generally avoiding female disputes. He worked at a logistics company, earning around 100,000, but also contributed his earnings to the family fund managed by his mother. When Lydia attempted to discuss joint budget planning, Kirill dismissed her. "Mother knows best, she's thrifty." Lydia bit her tongue. Thrifty? Of course. Especially when she bought herself yet another set of pots and pans because the old ones weren't quite right anymore. The breaking point came at the end of November. Zenaida Fyodorovna announced that for her birthday, which fell on a Saturday, she wanted to host a grand family lunch. Her sister Tamara and husband, a second cousin, their neighbor Aunt Galia, and several others were expected. 12 guests in total. "Litka, will you buy everything on Friday evening?" "Yes," the mother-in-law said. "I'll write a list and you start cooking Saturday morning. I want kolodets, aspic with fish, Olivier salad, herring under a fur coat, baked meat and a cake, bake a Napoleon. Kirill loves it." Lydia looked at her, and a sudden tension, like a plucked string, resonated within her. She nodded. Zenaida Fyodorovna smiled with satisfaction. On Friday, Lydia left work early, took the list, and went to the store. She bought everything: meat, fish, vegetables, mayonnaise, sour cream, 3 dozen eggs, butter, flour, sugar. The total at the checkout was 12,000. She paid with her own card as usual. For some reason, only small purchases like bread and milk were ever covered by the family fund. Larger ones were always her responsibility. She arrived home and unpacked the groceries. Zenaida Fyodorovna inspected them critically. "Litka, why did you get such expensive salmon? You could have gotten pink salmon." "The list said salmon," Lydia replied. "Well, I thought you'd be smart enough to realize pink salmon is cheaper." The mother-in-law pursed her lips. Wasteful. Lydia said nothing. She went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, and looked at her reflection. A tired face, dull eyes, hair pulled into a tight bun. When had she last done something for herself? A month ago? 2? She couldn't recall. In the evening, Kirill returned late, had dinner, and went to bed. Lydia lay beside him, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow. She had to wake up at 6 to finish everything. The kolodets needed hours of simmering, then cooling. The aspic, the salads, the cake, and all for people who wouldn't even thank her, assuming Zenaida Fyodorovna had done it all. Saturday morning, Lydia indeed rose at 6. Zenaida Fyodorovna was asleep. Kirill was asleep. Lydia started simmering the meat for the kolodets and began peeling vegetables. At 8, the mother-in-law appeared in the kitchen, refreshed and cheerful. "Well, Litka, managing?" she asked. "Make sure everything is ready by 2. Guests arrive at 3, but the dishes need time to set." "Yes," Lydia replied. "And don't forget the cleaning. Wash the floors, dust. The apartment should sparkle." Lydia nodded. Zenaida Fyodorovna poured herself some tea, took a biscuit, and retired to her room to prepare and dress. Kirill woke at 9, had breakfast, and sat at his computer. "Darling, I'll do a bit of work here. The deadline is pressing." Lydia simmered, chopped, fried, whisked. Her hands moved automatically. By noon, she had finished the kolodets and aspic, placed them in the refrigerator, and began preparing the salads. Zenaida Fyodorovna would emerge every half hour, sample, and comment, "Not enough garlic in the kolodets. You've put too much mayonnaise in the olivier." By 1 o'clock, Lydia was finishing mopping the corridor. Her back ached, her legs throbbed. She straightened up, wiped her hands, and suddenly felt she could no longer continue. Simply couldn't finish the salads, bake the cake, or smile at these guests who would be smacking their lips and praising Zenaida Fyodorovna. She entered the room. Kirill sat with headphones on, typing away in Excel. Lydia silently took a bag from the closet, packed her phone, charger, wallet, documents, and changed into jeans and a sweater. Kirill noticed nothing. She left the room, put on her jacket and shoes, and quietly closed the door. Outside, it was a frosty -10 degrees Celsius. Lydia took a deep, deep breath, and the air burned her lungs. But it was a pleasant sensation, like waking from a long slumber. She called a taxi and headed to the airport. On the way, she opened an app and bought a ticket for the next available flight to Sochi. Non-refundable economy, 11,000, departure in 3 hours. She hadn't thought about what she would do in Sochi. Perhaps just sit by the sea. Perhaps stay in a hostel for a couple of days. The important thing was that, right now, she was flying away from here. At Sheremetyevo, she checked in, left her bag in storage, and sat at a cafe. She ordered a cappuccino and a croissant, the kind she never bought because it was too expensive and useless, just empty calories. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. The phone rang precisely at 3. Kirill. Lydia didn't rush to answer, letting him call again before picking up. "Lydia, where are you? The guests are arriving any minute, and there's only kolodets and aspic on the table. What's going on?" "I'm at the airport," Lydia said calmly. "What are you talking about?" "Put it on speaker," she said, "and call your mother." "Lydia, have you lost your mind? Guests in half an hour." "Put it on speaker," she repeated, "and call Zenaida Fyodorovna immediately." Kirill mumbled something, and footsteps were heard. Then his voice, now anxious. "Mom, come here. Lydia is acting strangely." "What happened?" The mother-in-law's displeased voice sounded. "Litka, where are you? What kind of stunts are these?" "Hello, Zenaida Fyodorovna," Lydia said slowly, distinctly. "I'm at the airport. I'm flying to Sochi in an hour. The kolodets is in the refrigerator. The aspic, too. The salads are unfinished on the stove. There's no cake. The meat for baking is in the freezer. If you want to greet the guests properly, I suggest you urgently order pizza or sushi, using my money, of course." Silence hung in the air. Then Kirill wailed, "Lydia, what have you done? Have you gone mad?" "No," she said. "Quite the opposite. I've come to my senses. For 3 years, I've toiled, cooked, cleaned, endured rudeness, and received not even basic gratitude. I'm tired of being a servant in my own home." "Litka, how dare you?" Zenaida Fyodorovna shrieked. "I taught you everything. You're ungrateful." "You didn't raise me." Lydia felt a strange calm spread within her. "You used me. And you know what? I don't want to participate anymore. Kirill, if you want a normal family without your mother's total control, call me. I'll be in Sochi for a week, but understand, if I return, everything will change. Your mother moves out, we live separately, we manage money together, and I am no longer willing to be a silent Cinderella. If this doesn't suit you, consider me gone." "Lydia, wait. Let's discuss this." She muted the call and placed the phone on the table. Her hands trembled slightly, but inside, she felt an incredible lightness, as if a sack of stones had been lifted from her shoulders. The phone exploded with calls. Kirill, Zenaida Fyodorovna, Kirill again. Lydia declined the calls until she blocked them both. Then she stood up, finished her cooled cappuccino, and headed towards the boarding gate. On the plane, she took the window seat, fastened her seatbelt, and closed her eyes. As the plane lifted off the ground, she felt something akin to laughter or a sob escape her chest. An elderly woman sitting next to her asked solicitously, "Dear, are you unwell?" Lydia shook her head and smiled. "No, I'm fine. For the first time in 3 years." In Sochi, the temperature was 15 degrees Celsius. Lydia booked a room in a small hotel on the beachfront, dropped her belongings, and went to the sea. She walked along the promenade, watching the waves, the seagulls, the few vacationers who still came for the sun in November. She sat on a bench, took out her phone, 123 missed calls, 40 messages. She didn't read them, simply wrote one message to a group chat. "I'm fine. Don't look for me. I'll be back in a week, or maybe not. _quote_3_mom has agreed to move out. Let's talk." Lydia replied, "We'll talk when she's moved out." On the 6th day, he sent a photo of keys on the table and a message. "She's gone to Tamara's. Lydia, please come back." Lydia returned a week later. She entered the apartment. The small room was empty. The threadbare sofa and boxes had been removed. The air felt different, liberated. Kirill met her at the door, looking guilty and bewildered. "I'm sorry, quote 7. I really didn't understand. I thought you were exaggerating. And then when you left, Mom had a fit, accusing me of not controlling you. And I suddenly heard her talking, the way she always talked, and realized that you endured this every single day." 3 years, Lydia said. "I know, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll try, but with conditions. First, we manage money together. Second, your mother visits when we both agree she doesn't live here. Third, I am not your servant, and if we need to cook for guests, we do it together or order food. Fourth, if you ever side with her against me, I'm leaving forever. Agreed?" Kirill nodded. Zenaida Fyodorovna reappeared a month later, arriving with a cake and a doleful expression. "I've missed you so much. Zenaida Fyodorovna, please sit in the living room. I'll make the tea myself." The mother-in-law looked flustered but sat down. All evening she attempted to regain her former tone, making remarks and offering advice, but Lydia let them wash over her. And Kirill, to her surprise, spoke up to his mother a couple of times. "Mom, Lydia knows what she's doing. Would you really not have come back?" "I don't know. Probably not." She stood up, walked to the window of the small room, her office, which she had finally furnished. A comfortable armchair, bookshelves, the soft glow of a desk lamp. "But I'm glad you gave me a reason to try," she said, not turning around. Outside, snow was falling, and in its quiet descent, there was something akin to forgiveness.